Number 7. Leslie Chance. Leslie Chance had her first child with her high school sweetheart, whom she broke up with following his infidelity. A few years later, she met security guard Todd, and they got married. Leslie had her second daughter, Sarah, with Todd. History would repeat itself when it came to her spouse's fidelity, as Leslie found that he'd begun to exchange flirtatious messages with his former fiancée. Leslie devised a meticulous plan to get revenge. On August the 25th of 2013, Todd's body was found in an almond orchard in Bakersfield, California, with 2 bullet holes in the chest region. Given the careful preparation had taken place prior to Todd's killing, the authorities struggled to connect the pieces of the puzzling case. However, footage of a disguised Leslie from security cameras in a Starbucks emerged and showed her carrying a cylindrical container of bleach wipes. She became the prime suspect. In spite of the new revelations, prosecutors still found it hard to sentence the woman. She'd apparently attended a CSI exhibition while on vacation with her husband and daughters and learned how to get rid of DNA evidence. The investigation suggested that Leslie had driven Todd's car to the orchard, executed him, and abandoned the body. She then also abandoned his Mustang, which was found in front of a known drug house in a suspiciously clean state. As a school principal, Leslie was earning considerably more than Todd at the time of the murder. Rather than divorcing him and having to pay alimony, she decided to kill him and cash in on his $250,000 life insurance policy. Following multiple delays in her trial, she was eventually sentenced to 50 years to life in prison in 2020. Number 6. Mark Morris. Just days after her 33rd birthday, on May the 25th of 2017, Emma Day was stabbed to death in broad daylight in South London by her abusive ex-partner, Mark Morris. Their intermittent relationship had been going on for roughly 8 years, and they had a child together. Day had been seeking a $2,700 check per year from Mark Morris's alimony. Prior to murdering her, Morris had threatened the woman's life, telling her, "I'll go to prison before you get a penny from me." An inquest later revealed that the Department for Work and Pensions was aware of the threats, but had failed to raise the alarm. Fearing for her life, Day withdrew the child maintenance claim she'd put forward in November of 2016. Morris was enraged when it became evident that her request would be approved after she'd resubmitted it a few years later. He ambushed her in West Norwood as she was returning home from a school run. Morris stabbed Day repeatedly, inflicting fatal injuries. In the killing's aftermath, some argued that the system had failed Day. 2 weeks before her death, the police decided they'd take no further action against Morris, following an unsuccessful arrest inquiry. The man, aged 39, appeared at Camberwell Magistrates Court, where he was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 21 years served. Number 5. Carrie Neuerreuther and Lloyd Neuerreuther. In late 2018, Carrie Neuerreuther pleaded guilty to second-degree manslaughter for aiding her father in the killing of her mother, Michelle, in the town of Corning, New York State. The murder had taken place a year prior, after the 19-year-old's father, Lloyd Neuerreuther, told her that he could no longer afford to pay child support to his ex-wife. The couple had 3 children, one of whom was a minor still living with Michelle. Lloyd also reportedly wanted custody of the child after an unsuccessful legal battle that had lasted several years. Carrie was given an ultimatum by her manipulative father, who claimed that he'd take his own life if the team wouldn't help him carry out the killing. She made her choice and drove Lloyd from his hotel in Rochester to her mother's home in Corning. Brooks Baker, the district attorney for Steuben County, would later argue that she'd been essentially brainwashed and that she suffered from parental alienation syndrome, where one parent convinces a child to completely devaluate the other. Lloyd had mentally molded Carrie into his ally for years. After arriving at the Corning residence, he strangled 46-year-old Michelle to death in her bedroom and elicited Carrie's help to make it look like she'd taken her own life. Evidence would slowly mount against him as investigators found he'd stopped in Rochester, even though he claimed to have been in California at the time of the murder. 46-year-old Lloyd pleaded guilty to charges of first-degree murder, first-degree custodial interference, and second-degree conspiracy, for which he was given a life sentence. Carrie was convicted for her role in the killing and paroled after serving 1 year in prison. Number 4. Death of Walter L. Scott. On April the 5th of 2015, Walter Lamar Scott, age 50, was shot by police officer Michael Slager in North Charleston, South Carolina. Scott, who in the 1980s had served 2 years in the Coast Guard, had initially been pulled over by Slager for a non-functioning taillight. As Slager went back to his patrol car, Scott got out of his 1991 Mercedes and ran away. A warrant had been out for his arrest since early 2013, relating to child support payments. He'd already been jailed 3 times for missing alimony and knew that he'd have to face serious legal consequences if he again ended up in a courtroom. Overtaken by the anxiety associated with his predicament, he fled, with Slager in pursuit. The officer caught up with him in a lot behind a pawn shop. A struggle ensued in which Slager shot Scott with a taser. The latter started to run away when the officer shot at him from behind 8 times with his .45 caliber Glock 21. 5 bullets made contact, one of which fatally struck his heart and lung. A few moments after the shooting, Slager would radio that Scott had tried to grab his taser. This would prove to be a lie. As confirmed by an eyewitness video, Scott was already fleeing and 15 to 20 feet from the officer when he was shot. Fidin Santana, who'd recorded the video on his cell phone, claimed that at no point had Scott tried to grab the taser. The video also appeared to indicate that Slager had picked something up, possibly the taser, from where the altercation first occurred and then dropped it next to Scott's body. Given that Scott was a black man and Slager a white police officer, it was suggested that the killing had been racially motivated, which sparked widespread controversy. 2 years after the shooting in 2017, Slager was sentenced to 20 years in prison for second-degree murder. Number 3. Darren Boswell Johnson. In February of 2016, Darren Boswell Johnson killed his ex-wife, Nashante Davis, and their daughter over $600 per month in alimony. He had been trying to get out of the arrangement and first resorted to the internet for answers to his situation, but seemingly found no legal course of action he deemed acceptable. Consequently, he resorted to extreme measures and went to his ex's apartment with a fully loaded gun for what he claimed would just be a discussion. He waited until 26-year-old Davis got out of her house in Fort Washington, Maryland, and ambushed her as she was putting their daughter Chloe into the car. The moment she refused to talk to him, he shot her twice and then gunned down the child as well. Boswell Johnson fled from the scene and discarded the weapon used in the double murder. Even after being picked up by the police for questioning, the man continued to maintain his innocence. It was only after the authorities showed him CCTV footage that he gave up a confession. He was ultimately sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences for first-degree murder. Today's topic was inspired by Arcane 917, Katie Marino, and Mr. Midget 612. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Michael Camerata. In early April of 2019 in Staten Island, New York, Michael Camerata enlisted the help of his girlfriend, Aisha Ejia, to kill his estranged wife, Janine. The murder was only discovered after Janine's charred remains were found in a storage unit in Arden Heights. She'd last been seen alive on March the 30th as she was leaving the home of her then-boyfriend. It's believed that she'd gone to meet Michael and see her children. The couple were in the process of ending their tumultuous marriage, and Michael, who'd been abusive towards Janine in the past, would have had to pay child support. Janine disappeared just 2 days after she'd served him with divorce papers. An investigation revealed that Michael, Aisha, and Janine sat in the latter's car, where what had begun as a discussion devolved into an argument and then a physical altercation. Aisha, who was pregnant at the time and seated in the back, would later tell the authorities that she'd tried to break the two up. However, her efforts proved fruitless as Michael shot his wife dead. He subsequently told the authorities that Janine was fine when he left her. However, all the evidence, including Aisha's testimony and surveillance from the storage unit where Janine's body had been discovered, indicated otherwise. Aisha and Michael, both in their early 40s, were each charged with second-degree murder, concealment of a human corpse, and tampering with physical evidence. Number 1. Fred Lee. Following Fred Lee's divorce from his wife, Joy Ellis Sidwell, which had been finalized in 2009, a court ordered that he be paid $500 a month in alimony. The couple had been married for 30 years and had 3 adult daughters. Lee had sustained a head injury at some point in his life, which had rendered him incapable of working. However, the court-ordered fee wasn't enough for Lee, who still harbored a grudge against his ex. which he manifested by stalking and harassing her. In July of 2014, he made his way to Sidwell's residence, armed with a handgun and a shotgun, looking to end her life. By approaching the woman's home, he violated a stalking injunction, which had been in effect for 9 months. Rather than finding joy, however, Lee encountered Mike, Sidwell's new husband. He attempted to stop Lee from entering the home, but his efforts were to no avail, as he was executed in cold blood. The authorities were alerted, and they arrived at the scene to arrest 59-year-old Lee. In the aftermath, he pleaded guilty to first-degree felony murder, first-degree felony aggravated burglary, second-degree felony stalking, and third-degree domestic violence. The charges amounted to 21 years in prison. Even though he'd murdered her husband, Sidwell still had to pay Lee alimony and was forced to petition a court in order to have the order rescinded. Thanks for watching. Would you accept a pay rise if your employer doubled your salary, but with the stipulation that 75% of the extra amount will go to either your ex or your arch nemesis? Let us know in the comments section below.